we can all agree that Tamlin is the worst character. So why must he haunt me everywhere I go? Today I'm going to be doing a mega giveaway for almost all of the books I have read this month, plus 5 brand new books because Book of the Month is sponsoring this video. Book of the Month is a super popular and fast-growing online book service for readers. Their mission is to promote new and emerging authors so that readers can discover books that they love, and their team basically vets hundreds of books each month and puts together a curated selection of books for readers to select a couple that they want to be delivered to their door. It's also risk-free, so you can skip any month, anytime, and you will not be charged. The 5 books I'm going to be giving away are their February selection, and they include The Kindest Lie, which is a contemporary fiction about a woman returning to her struggling hometown, Girl A, which is a suspenseful story that explores trauma and survival, Infinite Country, which is a literary novel that follows the lives of one Colombian family separated by borders, The Four Winds, which is a historical fiction that is a Depression-era tale following a family striving for a better life, and Honey Girl, which is a contemporary fiction about a girl who spontaneously gets married and that causes her to re-examine her life and what it is she truly wants. Honey Girl would be my personal choice of the month just because the person that she ends up spontaneously getting married to is another girl. So you're watching a Black protagonist accidentally getting married to an Asian girl, which is basically going to be my future with Chanel. Giveaway details will be in the description below, but if you want the books guaranteed, you can get your first box for $9.99 using my code READWITHCINDY. Now let's talk about all of the books I read in the month of January. This is the first month in a while where I have most of the books that I have read. Throughout quarantine, I've mostly been listening to audiobooks, but this month, coincidentally, I just happen to have a lot of these books as a physical copy. So let me explain why that is the case. The first book that I read is The Inheritance Games, and the reason why I have this copy is because one of my friends wanted to buddy read this with me, and my love language is basically reading the same book that another person is reading. This is a Cinderella story that has been compared to Knives Out. The main character is just your normal, everyday, average, poor high school girl, but her life gets dramatically changed when she finds out that this old billionaire has died and he decided to leave her virtually his entire fortune. And she's like, what the hell is going on? I don't even know this person. In order to receive her inheritance, she has to move into the dead guy's mansion, who also happens to be occupied by his 4 grandsons, who are very salty that they did not get his possessions. They had to deal with all of his puzzles and riddles because he was the kind of guy that liked to play mind games with them and just fuck around with them, and they barely got anything, while this random ass girl inherited billions of dollars when she doesn't even go here. The first brother that she meets does not trust her right off the bat. He is convinced that she is a con woman and that she is trying to finesse their ass, and he's like, I don't trust you, bitch. I'm gonna take you down. I'm gonna find out what the hell is going on. The other brother is convinced that bringing her in is his grandfather's last game, where he's just trying to fuck with them once again, and she's just part of this riddle that he's trying to make them solve. The other 2 brothers aren't that interested in playing the game. The youngest one is the most chill one. He's just interested in eating scones. He casually builds a bunch of robots from scratch because he's the smartest one. And you know, when you're the smartest one, you don't need to prove yourself. So he's just chilling. And the oldest one is just barely even there. He's kind of like a nomad. He's also not interested in playing any of their games. So she gets roped into this world of wealth and privilege, and she ends up having to play this game herself and try to figure out what this dude was trying to do, while also trying to protect herself because there's tons of paparazzi. There's people that are willing to take her life just so that they can get the money themselves. I would be willing to risk my life if that meant I could inherit billions of dollars. In this economy, hell yeah, I would. I would be the kind of bitch that would be like, fuck the rich, send them to the guillotine. And then when a lawyer approaches my door and tells me that Jeff Bezos has died and has given me all of his money, I'd be like, you know what? Maybe the rich ain't that bad. Maybe rich people have feelings too. Who's to say? And I would move it into this mansion. I don't give a fuck about all the other grandsons that don't trust me. I don't care if there's gonna be people trying to kill me. I'm not going outside anyway because of COVID, so we're chilling. This story is basically escapism for poor girls. And that's why I'm here for it. There's just something so satisfying about seeing a poor, humble girl get a shit ton of money while the others don't get anything. It's wish fulfillment for me. I was a little hesitant coming and because YA is usually a miss for me, especially because the book pretty much opens up with this protagonist who likes to spend her mornings playing chess with the homeless man right before school because she does a bet with the homeless man where if she wins the chess game, she gets to buy him lunch. And I'm like, okay, bitch, we get it. You're the main character and you're so humble and kind, but you're also smart because you play chess. And then the first brother that she meets has strikingly gray eyes and is so rude to her. And I'm like, this ain't my first rodeo. I know where this shit is going. I think it gets a lot more fun once she gets integrated into the house and she meets all of the brothers and you see the brothers interact. I thought the dialogue and the interactions between the main characters as you get to know them was really fun to read about, and it made the characters more endearing. They all had strong personalities, they all had unique qualities to them, and the dialogue was just fun. My favorite brother is Jameson, who is the guy that sees her as another piece of the game that his grandfather has put forward. He's very precocious, but at the same time, he says a lot of out-of-pocket shit. He just casually says shit just for the sake of being chaotic. So one of the big questions that they all wonder early on is why has she inherited all this money when she's supposedly a stranger? One of the most obvious theories is that maybe she's the secret granddaughter or something. And Jameson is just like, it would be a shame if we were related. And I'm like, pack it up, Cassandra Clare. You can't be saying that shit. This is not a spoiler because early on it is revealed that she is not related to the family at all. So there's this one scene where one of the characters says, Avery doesn't bite. Avery is the name of the main girl in this scenario. To which Jameson replies, frankly, now that the issue of relatedness has been settled in negative, I'd be game if she did. And I'm like, bitch, you can't be saying this out of pocket shit. But I kind of dig it because he's just pushing the boundaries and he doesn't give a fuck. He just says casually flirty shit, and it just reminds me of how I am with my friends because I will just say this shit not because like I want to get in their pants, but because I just want to be chaotic, and that is exactly how he is, and I'm into that. And I like the mystery of this old man just planting all of these things to manipulate these boys. And there's a part where the oldest brother tells the main character stories from when the brothers grew up as children and they were given little toys by the grandfather, like a glass ballerina or a toy knife, and they had to play around with it and figure out what it means. And he tells the main character, you're not a player in the game. You're either the glass ballerina or the knife. Essentially insinuating that she is just another prop that he's dangling in front of the boys. And I just think the whole dynamic is interesting, and I like how the main character is trying to resist that, where she doesn't want to be part of the game, but she is smart and intuitive and calculating and analytical enough to want to be a player in it and want to solve it for herself. Like she wants to have more agency than being a prop. I found the mystery to be really compelling, where there were just so many questions that were brought up every time I read a new chapter. Every time one of the questions had an answer, it wasn't really an answer. It was just a way to pop up a whole bunch of more questions. So it kind of felt like a Russian doll where every time you reveal something, it's just a whole bunch of more questions and now you're even more confused. There were several times where I was texting my friend who has buddy reading this where I was like, this makes no damn sense. It compels me though. This book is not going to be for everyone. A common complaint about it is that there's a love triangle, but dude, it's a reverse harem. Of course there's gonna be a love triangle. I did think that her attraction to some of the other characters were pretty sudden and I didn't quite buy it, but because I liked the dynamics between the characters enough, I did not mind seeing the love triangle at all. If anything, it was more drama, so I was like, keep it coming. I'm definitely biased in giving this book 5 stars because it was one of those books where I wasn't really reading it critically or trying to analyze much of anything. I was just buddy reading this with my friend and we had such a fun time. So I was like, fuck it, why not? Speaking of guilty pleasures, the next book that I read is The Edge of Great, which is a Julie and the Phantoms retelling. Julie and the Phantoms is a Netflix show that came out in the summer of 2020, and it is perhaps one of the best things that happened to me in 2020 because it is such a pure show. It's about this girl who lost her passion for music because she has recently lost her mom, and music was something that she and her mom used to share together, where they would write songs together and play music together. But now that her mom has hit the bucket, she's like, man, I'm depressed. She ends up meeting 3 ghost boys. They were a boy band that died in 1995. They get brought back as ghosts, and then she's just screaming because she's like, what the hell are these 3 white boys doing in my mom's studio looking like a One Direction reject? And so she ends up reigniting her passion for music by becoming friends with these 3 boys, and they find out that the only way that they can be visible to everyone and be heard by everyone is if they play music alongside with her. Thus, they form a band called Julie and the Phantoms, where she's singing, and when they play, they just appear out of nowhere and everyone thinks that they're holograms. This is one of my favorite shows at the moment. I was so obsessed with it when I binge watched it. It was just so freaking cute. In the first episode that I watched, I was not into it at all because I was like, who are these vanilla ass white dudes? I don't care about them. But towards the end of episode 1, you finally hear her sing this piano solo, and she was so freaking good and talented that I was like, I'm gonna keep on watching just for this bitch alone. And then as I kept on watching, these 3 grew on me because they're a bunch of himbos. I got this because the summary of the book said that it was told in alternating points of view and it has exclusive story content not seen on the show. I thought we were gonna see new shit. That's why I got it, because I wanted to relive the show again, but also see new content, like what were the other characters thinking about. I was so disappointed when I ended up reading this book because it did not have any exclusive story content that it proclaimed to have. Everything was lifted from the script. The dialogue was exactly the same. You do see like alternate viewpoints and thoughts, but it didn't add anything new. It's pretty much anything that you could have guessed yourself. It also felt like the writing was super rushed. The author just took out important scenes in the show, and it was more diluted because when you don't have the actors or the music to rely on, it no longer feels endearing. Like it loses its charm because now you're just stuck with literally the same script with no soul added to it. When there's no new content, there's nothing about this book to make it stand out. I rated it 2 stars. It should really be 1 star, but because I love the show, I just had to give it a little pity star. You would be better off turning to fan fiction instead. The next book that I read, I don't have it on physical because I listened to the audiobook, and that was In the Dream House. This is a memoir where the author provides vignettes of her experiences in an abusive same-sex relationship. What's really interesting about the way that she tackled this kind of subject was she almost wrote it as if it were a story, like a fictional story, and she uses classic horror themes to frame the story in a way where it felt more atmospheric and kind of like creepy and eerie. And I really like that because it made the memoir feel very unique. Her relationship with the woman that she was with was so awful to read about because they were basically one of those couples that fight all the time, which is a huge red flag. The girlfriend was extremely toxic, where she accused the author of sleeping with literally everybody that she crossed paths with, her friend, her coworker, to eventually the girlfriend's own dad. And there was like no basis for it. And the bitch has problems for real. The author will do just any little thing, and then the girlfriend will just fucking tear her down and literally scream to her face and say, I fucking hate you, over and over. It was really not chill. If you have been in a toxic relationship before, you're definitely gonna see parts of that relationship reflected. For me, there was a part where the author went on an airplane after she just finished a trip with her girlfriend, and she tells herself, okay, this time I'm gonna tell my friends and family the truth, that I'm gonna tell them what's really going on. But by the time the plane lands at her hometown, she has already started fabricating the narrative where whatever she's gonna tell her friends or family is gonna be diluted from the actual truth. And I was like, ooh, not the cringe, because I relate. I was buddy reading this with my other friend who has also been in a toxic relationship. There were just so many points where we were like, a lot of these things are getting a little bit too relatable. And so I messaged my friend about this and I said, man, her wishing that her girlfriend had hit her just so that the abuse would be more valid is very relatable. And my friend says, yep, it's like you wish they had just left something visible so that you stop having to constantly explain what happened, and so you stop invalidating your experience. The worst part for me was the comparing yourself to physically abused people discussion she slightly had. To which I said, I remember thinking before while I was in a relationship with my ex that I low-key wish he would just hit me so I had a clear or valid reason to leave him. My friend said, same. LOL, but not LOL, but LOL. To which I replied, LOL, 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 hee hee. Hashtag just toxic relationship things. The author talks a lot about how there's this expectation that a queer queer relationship should be good or perfect, or else it will give it a bad rep, which is really sad because abuse is unfortunately very universal. There's a part where she talks a little bit about her friends who got divorced, and she says that that experience shows the humanity and the pain that they go through, but straight people can use that kind of pain as ammo to say, oh, that's why you don't deserve the same rights, because you had this thing that we gave you the right to, but look at how terribly you handled it. I rated this 5 stars. I just found it to be very lovely and haunting. I think it's so unique that it takes the lens of a speculative horror fiction to frame her real experience. Her writing is just so poetic and beautiful, and not everyone is gonna like it because she really flexes her MFA writing, but that's the kind of writing that I enjoy. So please flex on. Give me all the metaphors. Give me all the descriptive writing. Give me the fucking poetry in your pain. After that, I read A Heart So Fierce and Broken, which I cannot give away because this is a library copy. This is the sequel to A Curse So Dark and Lonely, which is a YA fantasy that is the Beauty and the Beast retelling. It was about this girl who has cerebral palsy and she lives in Washington, D.C., but she sees this other girl get seemingly kidnapped by this strange man, and so she lunges in to try to help her. He ends up grabbing her instead, and she gets transported into a fantasy world. She finds out that this strange dude has been going around in different worlds and trying to kidnap girls so that they can find a girl who will break the curse for the beast. And the weird dude that has been doing that is actually the bodyguard for the beast. He's like super loyal to the prince and he'll do anything for him. The book just explores what happens when she's in that fantasy world, and it focuses on her and the relationship between the prince. But the standout character to me was the bodyguard. I was super into him because I just like bodyguards in general. He was very much the strong yet stoic type of character. He doesn't speak much, but he's super loyal and he will fucking ride or die for you. So the sequel actually follows his perspective along with a new character who gets introduced. She is a princess from another kingdom. You follow the bodyguard character as he is dealing with a conflict that he finds out in the ending of the first book, which I obviously will not reveal. And then he crosses paths with the main girl. I thought I would at least give this book 3 stars because I liked the bodyguard character. He was my favorite one from the first book, so we were gonna see more of him. I was like, cool, what could go wrong with that? But a lot did go wrong with that. Okay, I had to recharge my camera. For this book, I ended up rating it 2 stars because I had a couple of issues with it. The main issue that I had though was what I like to call the Tamlin effect. If you somehow don't know who I'm talking about, this is a character that was in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series who started off as a love interest but then became the antagonist later on. He's an awful character all around, but it was just very weird for the author to completely tank him in order to elevate this other character who was also pretty shitty, but like we're supposed to worship him for some reason. The point is, we can all agree that Tamlin is the worst character. So why must he haunt me everywhere I go? Why must I see him again in the form of another character in this damn book? He just becomes so unnecessarily awful and cruel. He does terrible things to innocent people who don't deserve it, and also his own friend who has been by his side from the very beginning. And then Harper, the main character from the first book, is just so passive whenever he does these heinous actions, when she would have never let him get away with that shit in book 1. Whereas in this book, when he's like torturing somebody, she's just like, oh, he's just sad. In conclusion, the beast in this story has become a little bitch and it's very unattractive. The weird thing is, I think he's still supposed to be like a character that you want to have a happy ending. I don't think this author was trying to tank his character to become a complete antagonist like Sarah J Maas was doing with Tamlin. I think he's still supposed to be redeemable, but we're kind of walking a very shaky bridge right now if it hasn't been burnt already. Also, the whole conflict between the beast and Gray, the main character in this book, doesn't really make sense to me. It gets explained over and over why there's a conflict between them, but I still don't quite buy it because they've been friends for so long, and now it just feels like there's a rift between them just because they're very stubborn and they won't properly talk it out. Is this just a commentary on friendship between straight men and how they can't communicate their feelings properly, and now we have to go through this entire book of just filler content because these two dudes can't properly talk it out? Maybe that is realistic in that sense. So we've kind of given up on the main characters from the first book, but what about the main characters in this book? I was excited to read about them. Unfortunately, I'm finding that they were not interesting enough to hold up as their own book. I didn't really see any chemistry between them, and I don't don't think her personality matches his that well because they're both very passive characters. That's why Gray was like the side character in the first book. He's very stoic and quiet. He doesn't really do anything other than whatever he's being told. This new girl doesn't really do that because she is also very reserved and doubtful of herself. She has this whole inferiority complex going on. And I'm like, okay, I get that. But in order for this to be a compelling story with Gray, I need someone spicy to kind of shake things up a little bit. Otherwise, you're just gonna watch two very passive characters going back and forth between two kingdoms. The author is trying to set up this character arc where she realizes that true strength doesn't have to be brutal and violent like her family has taught her to be. So I get why she would have low self-esteem and that she's gonna find inner strength, but I just don't care about it. It's too vanilla, and this story is already vanilla as it is. I need you to get it together, bitch. But instead, most of the time, she's just like, oh, I'm not strong enough. And then Gray tells her, but I think you are. And she's like, oh, because a man told me so, now I can get the proper character development. Basically, I wish that she was more assertive so that she could have balanced him out. But even if she wasn't, I wish that her realizing her strength didn't have to literally depend on a man validating her for that. The next book that I read was Eat a Peach by David Chang. This is a memoir written by a very famous restaurant owner and chef. I personally know nothing about the restaurant industry, and I was surprised that I was actually interested in learning more about it, because he talks more about how he kind of started everything from the ground up. He reveals some of what happens when you get into the field and how difficult it can be. David Chang is so passionate about cooking. Like, I really envy how he can have so much gusto in having something to wake up for, but maybe that's just my personal issue. Anyway, he does talk about him going to therapy and working on his own issues. He reveals early on that he has bipolar disorder. He uses his workaholic tendencies in order to distract himself from possibly other things that are missing from his life. I can relate to that because I've been dealing with a very heavy state of depression, and I've been just channeling all of that into writing a fictional novel where I can project those things into characters and world building. So it's like something to do with the mental health issue that you have, but you're also using it as a way to avoid the issue that you have. I rated this book 3 stars because I found that the book kind of struggled figuring out what it wanted it to be. So in the beginning, David said that he wanted to write a book that would be a how-to guide for chefs who want to get into the business. But the people that he was working with for this book wanted him to write a personal memoir. He ended up trying to write both, but both of them became diluted. If he had fully committed to either one of those two, I think that the book would have been way more effective. For the chef route, if he wanted to just make it like a how-to guide, it would have been super interesting to just hear more about him talking about the industry. I would have loved for him to expand on the societal expectations of Asian chefs in America. How do you deal with the politics of this industry? How do you climb up the ladder in this kind of field? Give us the tea, because from the little scraps that I did see of it in this book, it sounded very juicy and I would have loved to learn more. And then there's the personal memoir route where he could have expanded more with talking about him grappling with his bipolar disorder and his workaholic tendencies. He could have talked about how much work took away from his personal life and his happiness, and he could have done a very personal reflection of his toxic attitudes towards his colleagues. That's the main impression that I got from this book. I could tell that he was extremely reluctant to talk about his mistakes and his shortcomings. For example, there is just this one tiny section where he talks about the Me Too movement, which is prevalent across many industries, including the restaurant industry. It is basically a boys' club. A lot of women chefs have dealt with discrimination and sexual harassment, and he takes this very short part in the book to just acknowledge what was going on and how he was part of the boys' club and how he hadn't realized that there were struggles like these and he hadn't considered their perspectives until now. And it kind of just felt like he included that one section just to make sure that they were there. He also talks a lot about how he regrets treating his workers poorly, where he would just verbally abuse them. He would get all up in their face and just scream at them for making any small mistake. But I noticed while he's describing this is that the whole time he's just talking about how he feels and how he regrets it, but he doesn't go into detail about who the other people were, what actually happened in those situations, because he kind of just glosses over it, and he doesn't really say what he's done to improve himself. I'm not trying to diss on this guy or try to demand that he shows how awful of a person he is. Everyone has flaws, everyone has made mistakes, everyone has things that they're ashamed about, and everyone deserves the time to process process the things that they're ashamed about and the damage that they've caused to others. It's just that if you need more time to process with that, maybe you shouldn't write a memoir, because it's clear to me that you're not ready to fully dive into it and reflect or talk about this publicly. Oh, I forgot to mention, I got this as an ARC from the publisher, so I will be doing a giveaway for this along with The Shadows, which I also got an ARC from the publisher. This is a thriller book that is very slow paced. It's really more focused on like the eerie atmosphere rather than having crazy shit happen. This follows a middle-aged man as the main character who has had a pretty shady childhood because he used to be friends with a couple of boys, including this one boy. This boy was named Charlie. You could tell that the vibes were just off with him. Like something was really weird about that kid. You know how when you're in school, there's always that weird kid that you just feel like is gonna do something terrible to this school. Not to get too dark about this, but you know what I mean, right? There's always that one kid where like you're kind of worried he's gonna kill somebody. Well, Charlie in this book does kill people. Leading up to the murders, when he was friends with the main character and their group of friends, he tries to initiate them into this weird activity that he likes to do. He likes to lucid dream, meaning that you have a dream and you're aware that you're dreaming so that you can control your dreams in a way. And he tells the boys that they can practice lucid dreaming in order for them to meet each other in their dreams and essentially share the same dream. Through those dreams, they can murder people there. And the main guy is just like, I mean, that's weird, but I guess since all my friends are doing it, what could go wrong with this? But things did go wrong because people died and Charlie disappeared forever and no one knows where he went. 25 years have passed. It is now present day. The main character finds out that there have now been copycat murders where they try to share dreams and murder people from there. I honestly don't have much to say about this book, so I'll keep it short because I'm sure this video is already very long. The premise was intriguing at first, but the actual reveal wasn't as creepy or dramatic as I would have hoped to be. Like when I found out the actual reveal, I was like, oh, that's it? There's a second perspective that you also follow along with the main guy, which is the police officer that is trying to investigate this. I kind of found her storyline to be boring as well. It felt like it was unnecessary and that the author just added her in just to make the book longer. I thought she would have played a bigger role in the story, but she really didn't. Overall, I just felt okay about this book. I rated 3 stars. I don't feel strongly about it either way. This is technically the last book that I read this month, but another one that I had been reading throughout January that I haven't finished yet is City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. And I got this book because I was doing a sponsored Instagram post with Hulu and they wanted me to showcase a book that has a show adaptation on Hulu. And I saw that they had Shadowhunter, so I was like, oh, maybe this is my chance to just check out the book, see what all the fuss is about. I am almost done with it, but I have been reading it very slowly because this book has put me through a reading slump. I don't know yet if I'm gonna make a separate video about it. It just depends on if I have enough stupid jokes to make about this story. But if not, I'll just talk about it in like a regular wrap up next month. I hope you unsubscribe to my channel. Goodbye.